Hard call on whether or not to fight this next battle here at the Crucible. Obviously 25 production points are in the balance. I give the the Terrans 25 more points if I surrender it. On the other hand, I'm 143 production points behind. If I look at the force I have a battle cruiser and a destroyer, so that's 5 missiles. You know, it's enough to take care of some of the fighters, but I'm facing so many fighters. One thing to keep in mind, the Terrans only have enough fighters to man two carriers or a base and a carrier. So this is about as big as I'm going to face in terms of fighters. I don't feel like I have enough missiles to deal with what I'm looking at. My heavy weapons aren't going to do much. I don't have any heavy weapons on a battle cruiser. That's interesting. Nor on a CA. All I'm going to have is the disruptors. But I just don't think I'm going to be able to blow these things away very easily. The speed and maneuverability of the fighters scares me. I think I'm going to actually surrender this one and push this over here, because now I have a base that gives me a potent defense on there. That means we're going to be going into turn 2, and there's a few things we have to do there. Now, one of the problems is I have to worry about these fleet LPs, whatever the fuck they use, logistics points, in terms of making sure that each there's two things I have to worry about here. One is I have to make sure that all the different fronts are balanced. I can't just fight and, I've got to follow the same balance rules I did before. I also have to follow the balance rules in terms of ship type, which means I have to keep a constant count of how many of each ship type I have. I can't have more than 5 of any given ship type until I have 2 of every ship type, and then I can go up to 10, and I'm probably not going to go above that. I don't think that's likely. Now, this all gets removed when you play the SE4X system, where you're actually building the ships, I believe. I hope, where you're actually able to design fleets according to, what you see as valuable. This is kind of important because, honestly, it would behoove you, because of the countermix limitations, to make fleets of big ships. Just as it kind of does in SFB, right? In SFB, you're limited to the total number of ships you can have on the field. Well, here, you're limited to you're limited to the countermix for ships that you can have. So you'd want to have battleships over frigates if possible, I think. There might be some ship classes that are kind of exceptions, though. So, for example, I really like the destroyer because it fires off 2 missiles and is a pretty potent and valuable ship. And that's what I've been focusing on, but I haven't built enough to go up to 10 destroyers. I just have 5 of them. So, that's kind of going to be one of my goals, is to get myself so that I can put more destroyers out there, because on a cost basis, I think they're a pretty good deal. Fighters, I think, are immune from that. They better be. If they're not, I got a problem. Simply because, you have to have fighters to support your carriers and your bases and everything for the Terrans. Anyway, I'm certainly playing that way, even if it's not the case. Which means we're going to be collecting our points, I guess, because we start over here with the building phase, and we can buy new ships with that, and then we will have to do ship assignment, and we're probably going to see that damaged destroyer go into the fleet reserve, even though it's only got 1 hull hit on it. It's a little weaker. It actually doesn't have any real penalties. It's just a little more easier to destroy. So I don't know. I may think about that. One of the things that's different, though, is I no longer have to keep ships in my reserve. And newly produced ships, I believe, are allowed to be assigned anywhere I like within the normal conflict zone points. Because basically what's happening with the reserve is those are fleets that weren't on the border right away. And now we're in a war, and everything's devoted to the battles. We also have the interesting situation here of a planet that's potentially under attack, so transports may be of value there. I think that's about it. And the Terrans definitely fell against their fleet limits. I had to build a battleship, a battlecruiser, and a light cruiser. I have to race those. In order to match my numbers and get everything fitting in the right place, I put the BC and the CL down in Orion, shifted the 2 carriers up to Maelstrom. I'm figuring I'm going to just give up in Orion because I can't really bust the base with what I got there. There's a base and a planet, and it's just more than I can handle. Maelstrom, I don't want to lose there because then I'm flung back to home, although there are advantages to being flung back home. The destroyer, scout, and then fighters in order to defend the base here. I'm counting on that being enough. And then in Antares, I put the new battleship and new light cruisers there. I don't have a lot of my reserve. I have a lot of fighters that I can't do anything with. And then I have transports, which are worth 0. And if I'm not planning on taking Hoth, I don't need the transports there. And let's not tempt fate by trying to use a battle cruiser and a light cruiser to take out the base. I have a lot of extra points left. I have 38 more points left. I could have built a scout for that. But a scout's not going to help me much. A scout is like a fighter. I want to get another carrier group on the board or something like that. I feel like the carriers are really potent. So far, everything else, I'm not so sure. I'm not impressed with my weapons is basically what the problem is. I very much prefer the Talon's weapons. Now, I only pulled in, let's see, 125, 2, 3, 425, plus the points I had left. The Talon's going to get more points, and they've taken less losses. Of course, they have to, the terrain's starting to go against them, right? They've got a base here that they've got to deal with. Elsewhere, though, not so sure, They can make some ground there. Because of the production being kind of close, I'm not at all positive how easy it is to take out, some of these bases. And when it comes down to it, though, this is going to be the big one. And if we can take this out, that ends the game. So, we could devote everything basically to that channel that we're allowed to. We're still limited that we have to defend all the channels that are still open. All right. Let's start working with figure out what the Talon are going to throw forward. I don't think this is going to be quick. I think it's going to be very, very painful, and it's going to reach a certain kind of stasis where, I don't know if I want to fight here. Let's see if we can push this forward and this forward, and we can give this up, and we'll defend this to push this back. And we're going to see a lot of stasis in terms of where things sit until we get to the attritional points where, you know what, we have enough force, we can take one of those bases down and really kind of make a move. But in doing so, we're probably going to take some heavy losses. Those bases look pretty potent. First of all, the Terran ones have a fighter squadron, but look at that thing. That's a couple missiles and 2 sets of disruptors on those. And then I didn't look at the Terran base. You're only allowed 1 base per space, of course. The Terran base, bunch of phasers, and one of the big guns. Huh? Is that what it is? No, that's just the torpedoes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. For the Talon, I was able to build, I don't have it up here anymore, but a battle cruiser, a destroyer, a dreadnought, and a light cruiser. I'm limited on the battle cruisers and destroyers because I like them, so I could only buy one of each of them. I bought a dreadnought that fills me up to 2 dreadnoughts. The light cruiser brings me up to a 3rd light cruiser. That was just a matter of the points fitting. I guess I could have bought a frigate, but I wanted more points. And the first thing I decided was, yeah, I gotta defend Orion, because that's the one place I'm losing. I don't want to lose that. So I got 2 battle cruisers, a heavy cruiser, a destroyer, and a frigate. That's 1 extra battle cruiser in there, and I threw 2 transports in to help defend it. And of course, I got the base. I think that's pretty solid. I wanted the extra battle cruiser in there for the missile capability, because I know there's a couple of carrier groups there. Yeah, there aren't anymore. They moved up to Maelstrom, but we won't worry about that. For Maelstrom, if I win this, I can push to Earth. So I've got 2 battleships, a dreadnought, a battle cruiser, and my damaged destroyer. I didn't pull it out of the line. It's not in bad shape. In the Badlands, this is facing a base. I'm not going to try to win this. I've got my sort of minimum points here, which for me is 8 of these LPs. Well, close to my minimum. Battle cruiser, heavy cruiser, destroyer, and a light cruiser, which gets me to 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. And in Antares, a battle cruiser, 2 destroyers, 2 light cruisers, and a dreadnought. I want to win that one too. I want to push them to that planet. I'm only sending 2 of my transports to Orion. Thought about putting more in, but I'm like, hey, I got 4 for a reason. 2 to defend, 2 to offend. And I'm actually pretty safe right now until I get to Earth, and then things get kind of trickier. Once I start fighting over Terra itself, that's going to be painful, I think. But I've got a much, much bigger fleet than the Terrans do because of the attrition and the improved point values that I've got. Plus, the Terrans have these extra fighters that I should not have built right away. Because, you know, the base is only one's at risk. And I could certainly have built more fighters to flesh that out. So, in a lot of ways, the Terrans are just at a huge disadvantage here on the campaign map, which was an error in my initial setup. And both sides bought too many transports, probably, to begin with. But again, you know, I'm doing it kind of as a learning game. However, what I didn't realize was, you know, even when the Terrans have the advantage fleet-wise, as I thought they did over here, I'm not impressed with what they could do. It looked like they had a much, much better fleet. Now, again, I made mistakes in the battle, I'm sure, but I haven't figured them out yet. And so, on top of the errors that I made in terms of buying too many fighters, they also, I don't know how to use them tactically effectively. Nobody's talking about game balance being horrible in this. So this may just be my doctrines being a problem. Which means we're going to go to the Antares sector, which is an open sector right now. It looks like I have a pretty big force of Talon there going in. Can I afford to give that space up? I don't know. Let's see. I have a battleship and a light cruiser. I believe the Terrans are just going to back off on that. So, Pandora falls, and that's more points to the Talon. Of course, they're going to have to hit bases very soon. Okay, the next one's Badlands. This was where we were planning on withdrawing. Destroyer, scout, and 4 fighters versus a battle cruiser, heavy cruiser, destroyer, and a light cruiser. Jeez, I got to think about this because there isn't that much defending. That's actually pretty damn light. I may want to try to push that. If I can kill the base, that does me some really good shit. So the Talon are going to go forward with it. Here's our base. It's kind of weird, right? These phasers, one out one side, one out the other. This thing only fires out this way. How do I want that positioned? Well, this only rotates twice. That is a wave motion gun. Let's position that like this, I think. It only fires out the front. Only fires out, I don't know, no, because the front is this way, so it fires out this side. So this is just weird. So if I turn like that, I'll have some firepower. I want to have it like this, I guess. At least it's out of side and not the front. This is front, back, and side, front, back, and side. A bunch of fighters, obviously, and the 2 light ships. One of the problems is I can either let the Talon come close and get their shots on the base and see what happens with that, or I can try to engage them further out, but then the base isn't as much of an effect. Notably, it's phasers. That big wave motion gun, that's not too bad out at long range. And I can cause collisions and stuff, so that's something I got to be careful about, is not to allow collisions to happen if I can help it. Phew. All right. And of course, the Talon are always the initiative player. Again, I don't think that's reasonable. I think it's fine that they're in the initiative player coming in at a base, but I don't think every scenario they should just automatically be the initiative player. That just feels so wrong to me. No terrain, obviously. I'll be back soon to start. Screwed again, and I kind of see why it happened. It's got to do with the initiative. Here, Talon was able to get basically the first shot in, and they blew up the Black Sheep Squadron completely, basically using disruptors. I launched a bunch of missiles, and the fighters shot down most of them, but there's still 2 targeted down, 21 on Double Down Squadron, and there's 2 fighters who are left in that squadron. So that's another one basically dead unless it can get away. All the firepower went. Now the firepower concentrated on the destroyer Achilles, which took out the antimatter torpedo that's carrying. So it's basically a useless ship at this point. It's just trying to slip away, which it probably can, because it just has to cycle up to turn 3, I think? Turn 4. Maybe not, but the thing is, I got better things to do. Getting rid of the ships that I want to get rid of, getting rid of the base. Everything starts at a certain speed, so they moved out in front of the base, and the base ends up unable to shoot anything. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, I mean, there's very limited range in this game. It's not like the SFB bases that can like blast things with their phaser 4s and such, not decently in front of them. So they don't tend to provide a good fire platform in the background, and the limited targeting that big wave motion gun has means maybe I can engage the ships ahead of time. Now, some of this could have been avoided. I could have said, oh look, the Talon aren't spending energy, I'm going to burn a point of energy, maybe one that I had accumulated in a battery, although I didn't do that right away. I gave myself side slips. But you start so close to each other that basically flying at the speeds that fighters and the ships were flying at, they engage right away. And one person or the other gets the drop on them. Without the simultaneous fire, you're not seeing the same kind of situation I'm used to as an SFB. And I think that's part of my problem here is, hey, the Talon have the initiative, and that means just by the size of the map and the speeds that things start at, they almost invariably will get the first shot unless I use that initiative purchasing. Now, that's something that's just not really wired into me very well. So anyway, I mean, I'm not sure this happened in the last scenario. I don't think this felt like it in the last scenario. But this one, boom, the Terrans are just wiped out, essentially. You know, I mean, they took a lot of firepower on their fighters and are reduced there. They lost one of their big guns. They don't have a lot here. They've got the base, which is actually pretty fragile in certain ways. Yeah, it looks huge, and it can take a lot of hits, but bases are fairly immobile, so you can kind of start timing your movements, etc., so that you can probably launch weapons into them and predict what their movement is. Now they can fiddle around, but they don't have a lot of choices here in terms of how fast they're turning. It's 1, 2, or 3. And it's not really guesswork because everything's pre-programmed. But with the afterburners, I can probably keep up with it and do what I need to do. So things look pretty damn shitty already for the Terrans. And I was hoping, you know, to maybe defend the base. I don't think it can happen now. And this is not, you know, oh God, the game's so unbalanced or anything. It's just the concepts that the game has are favoring the Talons for me so far. Simply because what I have to do to make the Terrans win keeps ending up being something that is out of my grasp, at least in the immediate sense. Of course, I cheated in the last one accidentally, but here it was the bid for the initiative. Last time, I'm not sure what it was, honestly. I feel like the matchup, missiles versus fighters, just went in favor of the missiles, you know. A ship can fire a couple of missiles. Well, I can't shoot down 2 missiles, like a destroyer can shoot a couple of missiles. The battlecruiser can shoot 3. A squadron can only shoot down 1.5 missiles. So the balance of the firepower goes in favor of the Talon there, and the only thing that helps is that there's a slightly faster recycle rate on the fighters if their base or carrier or whatever can support their firepower. But we saw that wasn't enough, you know, at least when I was cheating. I don't know how much that affected things. But anyway, it's time to start programming, and of course the Talon have the initiative, which is kind of a problem because they have to pre-select their commands. That gives a slight advantage to the Terrans, again, because they get to see what the Talon's plan is right in front of them before they make their turn. But I'm not clever enough to take advantage of that, to tell you the truth, especially when I'm playing this solo. If I was playing it opposed, maybe I could sit there and zone out on the situation and really kind of understand what I need to do. But I feel like it's the mechanisms of play that are getting in the way here. Now, there's certainly times that that's the case in any game, but I'm really kind of struggling with it in the sense that I'm not like, oh, I have to, you know, try to keep the enemy at bay, or I have to try to close. That's not the thing that's really keying me in here. I mean, the Talon have to close, but the thing is, getting that first shot off is such a big deal, and it doesn't feel like the same kind of situation. First of all, there's no, you know, Me Too firing, but it's also not pre-programmed or anything like that or plotted, so you can't just sit there and say, yeah, okay, I'll fire, you know, my alpha strike now. You have to wait your turn until you get an option to do so, and at that point, I'm down a lot of firepower. It was a critical hit, but shit happens, right? It could have just blown up the whole ship and taken out some neighbors as well. And if I had put a bid in at the right point, I could have gotten the first strike. Although, I gotta tell you, the Terran first strike wouldn't be as impressive. Because a big part of their points is back here where they can't do a first strike. And they're pre-programmed coming in with a certain speed. Now, maybe I should have set up further away from my base to try to cover the base or something like that. But I'm sure that there would be ways around that too. The fixed point defense is a hard thing, and that thing just doesn't look powerful enough to qualify as the kind of weapons platform that I was kind of expecting it to be. Things are turning into a bit of a muddled mess here with the ships in the middle, and I have to say this much. All these big hex-size ships forming almost a puzzle board out of them. It is not pleasant, especially with the counters on top of them, the writing, etc., that you have to pick up counters to change as you do it. Mechanically, I'm finding this a lot more difficult to cope with than other more traditional designs. It may be fine for a couple of ships on a side. It is not sufficient because of the choices that were made in terms of physical components for real big fleet battles. I mean, this is just 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 to 4, you know, but it's close in stuff. I would far rather have bunches of regular shaped counters, somewhat smaller than the hex, possibly quite a bit smaller in terms of missiles and stuff, and certainly not all these shield reinforcements and crap like that on there. They are problematic, and again, the other components don't make up for this decision. The thing that happened, this squadron is the one these missiles are going after. It managed to fly past the missiles essentially and catch them around. And again, the Talon now could have picked an initiative action to prevent that from happening. And now the base has them in range and shot them, and they're gone. Some other shots that took place. The scout shot down his shield, and I have the wave motion gun. That could destroy this CL, but the problem is then the CL would be sitting here. And what's its explosion value? Its explosion value is 2. It would take out fighters in both these hexes. Hey, not worth it, so I blew the crap out of the heavy cruiser front shield, which weakens it a little bit, but it's not dead, you know. However, maybe the Talon doesn't want to fight so hard now. We killed a destroyer. We could maybe start disengaging from near the base. Of course, the base has shot its wad. It's going to have trouble because it can't. It has a lot of energy, 6 points of energy plus its spin, but it's not going to be able to power up its weapons terribly well at the same time as it's powering up the fighter weapons. So we'll see what the fighters can do. I've charged up a couple of the fighters. I've got more energy. I'm probably going to throw that into fighter weapons for the most part to see what I can do, because in this game you want to do your damage fast. What do we got? The scout here took some shots down its front shield, just enough to take the front shield down. It's turning away from this battlecruiser, which is kind of a big deal because if it kept going straight, the battlecruiser would have a shot at it next round. That's pretty good. It's not a bad shot anyway. It's a range 2 disruptor shot, but I don't know. This fighter's turning or making its way to engage with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I forgot to move him. So many pieces to move. But this one moved in close and shot down his shield, got another critical on him, increasing his turn radius. The destroyer is pulling off the map. I'll float a little bit, but I'm probably not going to float too far. I'll probably just let him escape if nobody's going to chase him down for the kill. And now as we come to the end of this impulse, disruptors fired and took out one of the fighters on the Ace of Spades squadron. That was kind of lucky for them. Only to lose one. It was a double disruptor fire. Could have taken 2 of them out pretty easily. Powering up my phasers here. Still kind of worried that they're going to press the attack. It looks like they are, and I'm kind of defenseless here other than the fighters. This fighter's trying to chase the destroyer back there to keep it from bringing its missiles to bear on it. It's got to stay on its tail. It's more maneuverable, but it's also faster, and that can cause issues, as we've seen, where you end up flying in front of something. These guys were all charged up, but I couldn't get a shadow line, so I didn't power them up more. I may have wanted to power one of these up instead of the phasers, but I'm really worried about the assault on there, and I think the fighters, they're behind their enemy. They can punch holes in it as they wish, more or less. The trouble with, I have that SFB thinking in mind, hey, I'm positioned right behind someone, I can do a high energy turn or something like that, not actually move, just unload on them in the first impulse. Nah, not in this game. So, some of it feels more like a Blue Max type game where I've got to do this forward movement in general. Although even in that, you can do certain maneuvers that can keep you in the same hex. Worst comes to worst, a stall, but that can be dangerous. Because I'm not traveling down an impulse chart trying to figure things out. I don't know if I moved this ship or not. It's kind of weird because it's got this F on here. That doesn't quite make sense. I thought I charged the shield up pretty recently, but maybe I'm mistaken. You know, it's not the same kind of record keeping as having things on the energy allocation form where I can go back and look at things very easily. Obviously, if you're only flying a couple of ships yourself and you have a bunch of team members who are all flying a couple of ships, hey, that's whatever. You know, it's probably pretty easy to keep track of, but boy, I'm having trouble here. It's not like I'm walking away for very long, but I come back, you know, after running downstairs to light a pipe or whatever, and I'm like, shit, I think I didn't move that ship, and I think I completely ignored it because it's completely covered by an enemy ship. Oh boy. So I screwed something up and have been screwing it up continuously, which has to do with side slips. I can't leave them banked forever the way I've been doing. You know, I've been like, I can just throw a side slip on there and it'll be good forever, kind of like a battery charge or whatever. No. If you don't use it on your next move, it goes away. You don't have to use it, but it will disappear. And I'll try to play that correctly from now on. That's going to be really hard. I don't know why I've been thinking about it as kind of a banking. Yeah. I mean, it's clear as hell in the rules. It just didn't stick in my brain. Of course, I'm too excited about the rule that I screwed up to worry about. I want to send a thank you out to the guy who sent me that note. That's, yeah, it's been a major oops so far. This is all too often the case. I kind of lost my will to play for a little bit. Trying to get this scenario at least cleaned out before the weekend starts. Really shitty things happen to me emotionally sometimes. So, yeah. 3 missiles launched out of here, powering up some weapons. We're going to go in and try to wipe out the base. If we can get rid of the base, the fighters become easier to deal with. And the fighters are kind of problematic anyway. I added some more board for this guy to fly off on. I was just going to disengage him, but honestly, I don't think I need as much space as I have. I've got room to float, so I'm allowing the expansions of the map. I'm having some difficulty getting the fighters to turn around. They're going too fast is the problem. They have a lot of turn capability, but they're too close and too fast to really line up their shots, and that's having to whip around and try to come in a little broader. The base fired off its right side phasers and took out one of the missiles. It's going to have to eat a missile, and it's going to get shot to crap by the battle cruiser and the light cruiser. I never know if there's an opportunity that I'm missing. You know, if I had, the only thing they could have spent was this. If well, no, there's no battery. Yeah, so this is the only guy who could have actually spent an action. Oh, he could at any point and just grab the initiative. But I don't see any real advantage, mainly because my stuff's moving too fast. This did not move. I'll do my side slip because now side slips have to be taken or they're lost. Because I'm actually playing by the rules. We'll shift there. I think that helps me in some ways. I'm not quite sure. This thing has what? I don't know, a weapon. An image of a weapon. I think that's a phaser, because it's a scout, it better be. Okay, I screwed up. Put this change in here. It actually doesn't help me. I gotta put it here instead, because this guy actually doesn't generate that. He generated a movement that I don't have. He's armed with a phaser. Let me see. Probably want to come in this side. Okay. And I'll uncharge this weapon. But what happened was I wanted to get an initiative so I can turn around and pick off another one of these missiles before it hits. And of course, it's also coming in on a different shield. Now, the light cruiser fired 2 of its disruptors, busted down the shield a little bit. not entirely. Fighters still trying to get their grip on things that it's tough to get. But we have a change in initiative, and that's going to be important. And still some jockeying going on over here with the fighters. This guy, I don't know what the fuck. The base, however, is beginning to take damage. His shield down now. He doesn't rotate for a little while, but these guys are out of weapons. That shield's rotating this way. Means the heavy cruiser isn't going to be able to get a shot in on it, which may be part of the reason it's turning this way. It's also turning that way in order to get a potential shot on the fighter there and push forward. But more map flooding, more jockeying for positioning this destroyer. Eventually I'm going to have to get it off the map because I'm using up too much space there. But so far I can still keep it on. May push down though, and I'm just going to have to rotate them back up, and that gets us over here. I don't think anything except the base is going fast enough for that. This seemingly random dogfighting type action going on where everybody's trying to get a position on things, but some firepower. Crap. This was up here. That's why I was able to shoot it, knock down some of its shielding, and also hit it from behind with the scout. Basically just, I can't sit around on weapons. You've got to fire them and try to charge them back up, within the span. And when you're coming close to the end of the round or whatever, things change. There's sort of an artificial factor in it. The game tries to take away a lot of the artificial factors, and it does a pretty good job with, the red markers can't be obtained unless you're here. So there's a little bit of, but in general you can power things up during the course of the turn. So it gets rid of some of the artificiality of a turn limit to firing weapons, which has always been something that bothered me in most games, honestly. But in this one, it's a little bit mitigated. The destroyer, it's gone. I don't have room for it, and it's really not able to be engaged, is the thing. I guess I could have, I don't know. There isn't really a way without cutting boards or adding additional stuff to the game. And I don't see, the Talon do not want to chase it down. So, yeah. It's really hard to line up shots in this game, I think. Anyway. Now it's time to, or much harder than it is, mainly because the firing arcs are a little bit more, especially the front firing arc, is a little bit less open than it is in many games. Like in the SFB, hey, you got this front firing arc that just shoots out the whole cone. You don't have that here. You have something that just kind of, I don't know what it does. It kind of goes along here, so you can't get a close-in shot as easily with those front arc weapons. I don't know. It feels really restrictive to me comparatively, especially with the fast fighters, which just can't swing around and do quick maneuvers in their own hex the way that I'm used to. So I'm having some real difficulties lining up shots and getting things to go, which is probably for the best, because when you line up shots, ships disappear real quick in this. Anyway, it's time to start programming stuff, and I know this is completely uninteresting, to tell you the truth. I can feel it in my soul right now. Okay, weapons charging some more. Let's see. These guys are fully charged now. And the heavy cruiser is about ready to be able to launch another strike. It's got its afterburners. Pretty much I've left my afterburners alone. That may be a mistake here. This guy probably could have, with his good turn radius, he probably could have done something with his afterburners to make sure he took out those fighters. They're trying to keep him off the board, and then he can come in as a missile platform, but I'm just not good with that kind of stuff. You know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of Richthofen's War, where you're constantly trying to line up your shot, and you're just like, oh shit, I flew past them. Without the side move, it feels weird to me to try to do it. I hate geometric puzzles, and I feel like I'm constantly being faced with geometric puzzles in this. I'm gonna walk away for a while. I don't know. I was hoping to finish it up tonight, but I don't think I'm gonna bother. Okay, first impulse, round 3. What do we got? The base fired off a couple of phasers. Really kind of a waste. They only did 2 points of damage. It was range 1 though, so you know they could have brought the shield down, which would have been helpful. Fighter, this one's lining up a shot. He's going fast enough. He's probably going to be able to, you know, bring down his rear shield. Or if this guy turns this way, he might even get a shot on that down side shield. This one's maneuvering around because he's trying to build up his energy. And we've got the destroyer, who's managed, because he's going so much slower, to slip behind that fighter squadron. The fighters can't slow down. Their engines run too hot. They basically can go speed 5 or 6, and that's it. And I thought I'd be able to line up a shot and do some real damage to this. It's too hard to maneuver in close with those fighters, and I don't really have the knack of being able to swoop in properly. I think if I played more, I'd get more used to that high speed on the fighters. Normally I'm used to high speed, highly maneuverable ships being able to, like, you know, an SFB being able to get the drop on just about everything else. It's not the case here because largely the lack of the high energy turn. There's nothing equivalent to it. I can't turn 2 spaces on one impulse or anything like that. So, you know, no matter, the fastest you can turn is kind of a 1 hex per impulse, and it's just not sufficient. It's not tight enough to get you whipping around. I have the, you know, I have a tendency not to really practice the geometry of games or exactly how the tactical situation is going to play out very well in my mind. I don't picture that very nicely. So what ends up happening is the only way that I learn these things, and the same is true with Go, is through repeated play. And right now, I just don't have enough games under my belt to make the fighters effective. I think that's probably the biggest problem I have with the Terrans, is their fighters are probably, you know, I concentrated hard on the fighters, and their fighters are probably a big part of their combat capability. They're one of their special weapons, basically, and I can't really use them effectively. Impulse, another phaser battery comes online and blows through the empty shield here, doing quite a bit of damage. This light cruiser's in a lot of trouble. It's going to have reduced power. Now, it has some weapons online. I'd like to get those weapons bearing. The problem is disruptors. Disruptors are kind of weird in terms of their range, what they can fire. I don't have the right arc yet, but if I can get something in arc, I'll probably take a shot and then try to leave the board. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to take out the base anymore. It's a tough nut. When it's powering itself up, wow, it can get shots off pretty quickly and do a lot of damage to things that are coming in on it. Of course, then it'll be a weakened base next turn. There are rules for repair. It doesn't have to go back to reserve, which it can't do. It gets repairs online, but I don't think they get complete repairs. I'd have to look that up. I'd like to kill it, you know. I'm willing to basically lose everything here in order to destroy a base, but if that doesn't look likely, then we'll have to see where we go. Fighter, hey, he's not going to get a clear shot next time either. He's 2 hexes away, but that's okay because basically the Talon has 2 choices. Turn away, leave the rear shield, well, 3. Leave the rear shield facing, which it'll be doing next time at range 2 anyway, and allow the fighters to get even closer, or possibly turn that empty shield down, which is really not a good choice. So it's kind of flying with its weapons away from the base. It's not going to get close enough at the speed it's going, etc., to really be able to do anything with those weapons. So it's kind of out of the battle this turn. I don't see where it's going to get a good shot in. However, this destroyer coming up with 2 missiles is a danger, and this fighter that was dispatched to deal with it has failed completely. If I'm mistaken, I do have a range 1 firing opportunity because the Terrans have the first shot here, or first, they have the initiative. However, here's the thing. As long as I don't fire that, I keep him from turning. So I'm going to hold off. There's going to be a point. This round, this thing has to move. Next round, and it could side slip. Next round, though, I get another move, and that may determine what happens. If need be, I can power up a side slip and slip right in behind it. I don't know if I really like that, but I'm not going to do much more than just take the shield down here. Whereas if I can get a shot in on the down shield, this ship is gone. The Talon are faced with a lot of hard choices here. This is in round D. Fighter squadrons positioning themselves so that they could presumably attack the battle cruiser very shortly. Now, I've got afterburners. I could fire off an afterburner, get me here. That doesn't really help me. I'm at range 3 here. 3 through 6s, I can pick off fighters with these guns. I think I'm going to try to do that because the fighters scare me. They scare me, and this is a full shield I'm facing here. I want to try to get my shots in on the empty shield if I can. Range 1 disruptors, not so good. I'm going to hold on to them. I think this ship can survive whatever's coming to it. But what's coming to it is beginning to look a little bit scarier. In fact, I'm not quite sure why those phasers didn't try to poke a hole in it, except that the fighter's moving very fast, and it's almost guaranteed to get a good shield hit. So, plus, if this blows up, it does damage to things near it. So, maybe it's for the best. I don't know. But yeah, the afterburners on this ship could get me here. Or if I didn't charge up my weapon, I could get here. And neither of these really helps me because here my weapon facing is down this way and doesn't do me any good. So I'm holding off on using him, and I don't see a need for his afterburners because I can fire those at range 3. So I got 2 disruptors, and I'm going to fire them at the fighters. 3 through 6s hit. Each one takes out a fighter. And I miss completely. A lot of debating about should I do anything at all, you know, with the nothing much moves. Well, firing off an afterburner on him, moving him forward doesn't do me much good. Turning him and moving here doesn't get this into arc. So I'm just going to sit there, but I don't know if that's wise either. There's kind of the afterburners, I might as well blow them, but if I'm not gaining anything, why bother? But I'm not sure whether I'm gaining something or not. But if I turn away and start heading this way, my guns are then kind of permanently out of range, but I think they are anyway. I think this side armament is just not going to come into play before either significantly different things happen or something. I don't know. And some key shots were taken by the fighters, blowing pretty much this thing to crap, and it's turning away and getting out of there. The battle cruiser fired some long-range disruptor fire at the scout, and I hope I was within range. I don't know. The firing arc, I don't think I actually was, but fuck it. Otherwise, I was going to send a missile after it. It was basically dead. We can take a look at it. The shield's down in the front and back, and just 1 hit left on it. The thing is, I didn't want that last phaser to get a shot. That's basically what it comes down to. But that means this fighter's got another chance. If it can catch up to that destroyer, it looks like it's going to get another pass at it. And the problem is, it can't do side slips very easily. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until it gets to here. Another option would have been to try to bust these shields with the 5s and 6s. You know, 1/3 shot. Maybe I get 2 hits on that shield. I would help, but I'm kind of beginning to think I'm not going to be able to take the base down. and because this ship is charged up with weapons and may try to kill something. But otherwise, it looks like it has to limp off. This one, I got some weapons. If I can turn around and get a shot in, I will. But for the most part, it's trying to leave the board too. Destroyer has a missile shot. That's probably not enough to do much at all. That leaves me with the battle cruiser. It's got some hits and it's got a down shield. I don't think I'm in a position to completely take out the Terran forces. On the bright side, if I don't lose anything, I've done some kills. That's not going to move this marker off the front line. So we'll get another crack at the base later or whatever. At least we're not losing any ground. So in some cases, attacking a base is just dangerous because it almost assures that you're gonna, you know, if you can't put up a good fight for the base, if you just withdraw or whatever, you lose the space. You fall back to the space you were in before. So you just lose ground because of the existence of the bases. I like the campaign system. This is mechanically more painful to me than Starfleet battles, but only, you know, I don't think that would be the case for people who don't play a lot of Starfleet battles. SFB's kind of, I don't know, it's a game you really have to kind of get used to be able to play it efficiently with lots of ships. And maybe I wouldn't be able to anymore. I don't know. But now I got to do the complex stuff and figure out my power curves, which isn't hard for the Terrans. I think I'm leaving this here. I like that. The more spin I have, the better it seems to be, although I've got the choices between 1 and 2, and I'm really kind of worried about that shield. And the rest is just fighters, and I'm going to leave them at 0.5. And then the other opportunity, although actually this guy might boost up because he wants to try to catch that. The other opportunity is for the Talon, and I don't know what the hell. They're going to take some thought. There's the weapons charge, and yeah, I know we're going over the hour, but it's getting close to the end here. The Talon, really not sure I can risk getting in closer. Another pot shot took down, you know, this thing powered it up, so it took down the rear shield of the battlecruiser. I just feel like sticking around at this point is just is going to be risking losing ships. I don't think I have a fair shot at taking down the base. And I've taken out one fighter squadron and a ship. That's something, right? Bases are tougher, and I've taken out some other fighters as well. You can see two more fighters gone, so that's almost another squadron down. So there's some definite pain there, and this thing's damaged. I haven't done a lot of damage, let's put it that way, but it's not too terrible either. I was hoping that I'd be able to do more, and I'm actually kind of impressed with, given how poorly I've managed the fighters, that the Terrans are actually holding out a little bit here. We're beginning the pulling away. I launched a couple of missiles to try to take down Double Down Squadron and cover my escape for this and perhaps this. This guy, I pulled up his turn radius so he can kind of turn away. Still some danger that this thing can do some more damage to him. Overall, though, this is ending up a little hotter than I want it to be at this point. You know, I mean, I did press the attack with the thought of I had a shot at taking the base down with what I had, but and I'm doing okay. So I can't be too upset with the Talon, and I can't be too upset with the outcome overall from either side, because I think the base dying would have been a big deal, even if it cost the Talon their ships. I'm just not willing to press that any further. I think there's a chance that the base would survive if I tried. That the ships would get destroyed. Direction the fight's heading in, I did another big shift, but real bad news for the Talon. First of all, sacrificed a fighter to get up close, blowing up the heavy cruiser. The base fired on the battlecruiser here. The base has an empty shield, but I can't spin around in time. And got a couple of criticals. The first one created the second one. The first one knocked out the faster than light drive. There's no counter for that. You just put a little X there. I don't know. I guess you can have multiple power drops. And this takes place immediately, so his power is lower now. And that's something. It doesn't. Some of the things affect your power output. Some of the things affect your power directly. Like power output gets affected by this. So this actually affects the number here when you write it. This, though, takes immediate effect, at least as I understand it. I may be wrong. No biggie if I am. Using the afterburners to try to get set up here now. Disruptors at range 2, probably a good idea, so I think I'll actually fire these disruptors off. I've got 3 shots. I can wipe out that squadron if I get lucky. So let's do that. That I didn't. I knew I was going to do it. I didn't consider it yet. That's 3 through 6. That prevents me. I don't know. I mean, it's possible, though, that this thing could get out of arc. Not really. Not this round. Is it? Yeah, it could end up at range 2. And right now I'm at range 3. I'll hold fire against those fighters because I think I can get better odds on them by getting to range 2. So basically what I've done is I've decided to turn on them and try to destroy as much as I can. I think this battlecruiser is gone because it can't escape can't do the FTL escape. Obviously the heavy cruiser's gone. The destroyer looks like it'll probably escape simply because it's not worth chasing down when there's better targets out there. The light cruiser, if it can get these out of the way, it can probably escape. 3, 4, 5 at the end of next turn is when it can go to FTL. But as long as I can float the map and keep things on board, I'm gonna be chasing at least one of these bigger ships down. I think the battlecruiser is dead. That's basically the extent of it. I've got another shot lined up. If I power it up, that will finish it, but that would kill a fighter. So I probably want to get out of its range of explosion. Battlecruiser's down now, and I opened fire with this because he will not get another shot as far as I can see. This was on the front shield. It's kind of a waste, but I'm looking at 3 disruptors shooting me. This is speed 3. And power 2. He's not going to have a power up. Actually, I would not be hit by all of them. Oh well. But I will be able to be hit by one of them, so whatever. I don't know. Might be able to chase him down, but yeah. I thought I was set up so that I could fire. I made a mistake, and he managed to turn and get out of my arc, which is probably not what I was expecting. That puts us over to the Talon side, and we'll see what he can unleash, but he unfortunately has to move. And I think we're at the point where I'm going to do something that the game doesn't explicitly allow. It allows you to surrender at the end of a battle, but in this case, it's sort of the negotiated end of a battle, which is, look, double down can fire up to speed 6, so these will not catch it. It's possible that phasers could knock that out anyway. But basically, everything's traveling in the wrong direction. This is going to be able to get out of here this phase, actually. So we can put that there. And this will be able to get out of there next phase, assuming no firepower. The base is not going to be able to hit it. It's range 4. This fighter might be able to chase it down and, you know, power up or something. But for ease, let's just say everything, you know, survives that's on the board in the state that it's in. And then we'll handle the cleanup based on that. So we got a few ships that got off the board. The kills, honestly, it went in favor of the Terrans here. A squadron and a couple other fighters. 1, 2, 3, 4 fighters. So two squadrons, an extra fighter, and a scout, but up against a heavy cruiser and a battle cruiser. And then the damaged ships, called the destroyers, about equal. The light cruiser there is in pretty bad shape. Actually, this destroyer is fine. It's not damaged. It just escaped. But damage doesn't matter too much. It just means things cycle out for a turn or so when they go to the reserve. I think it ends up being just one turn. The question is, I'm not sure how I consolidate the fighter squadrons. I don't know if that's allowed or if I have to pull all those fighters back as damaged squadrons. To me, it makes more sense to consolidate, but I don't think the rules actually allow that, so I'll have to make a decision on that. But anyway, there we have the end of the Battle of Elsewhere. And I'll send this up and do the bookkeeping for it. And then after I go dancing, we'll come back to this and finish up at least this second turn.